All right. Well, for people that don't know me, my name's Matthew Goggin. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Dataweavers. So all things revenue are my responsibility. And just like to say thanks for joining the webinar today. We're pretty excited about this session. We've had really good registrations. I think, as I said before, there's probably a few people that are struggling to join based on not having a Zoom account. But we're recording the session, so they'll get a chance to pick up the recording after. So Piers is the main man today. So Piers Matthews, he's a recent addition to the Dataweavers team. Piers is our global pre-sales lead. We're very excited to have Piers join the team. He has a long and distinguished IT career. And I noticed, Piers, that you shaved this morning. So some of those grey hairs have disappeared, which is good, but I'm sure you'll be impressed with Piers' presentation today. Piers' history is predominantly in the Microsoft partner ecosystem. He has great in-depth knowledge of designing and building large, complex digital transformation projects. And I'm sure that will shine through in his knowledge today in this presentation. We're super excited to kick this off, and I'm sure that you'll see lots of value and it'll be informative. Just from a logistics perspective, we will give you a chance to ask questions at the end verbally. But if you think of something throughout the presentation, if you could just pop that in the chat, then we'll make sure that Piers gets visibility and can answer those at the end. So over to you, Piers.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Matt. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. So today we're going to be talking about stop stressing about version 8 security and how do you go about going through an upgrade process. So we've got quite a varied audience today. We've got some partners, we've got some folks from Sitecore, and we've got some customers. So I'm going to take you through the full end-to-end process that we have today. And we're going to start talking about making sure everyone's on the same page, understanding what the support lifecycle from Sitecore actually looks like. So what does extended support look like? What does mainstream support look like? And what is the difference there? Some of the frustrations that we've seen our customers have when they go through upgrades on their own, and how we can address those. Some of the things that you carefully need to think about when you're doing an upgrade, and what your target state ultimately should look like. So where do you want to end up? Where do you want to be? And then what I'm going to take you through finally is keys that we adopt during an upgrade to ensure that our customers are successful into the future. So starting off with the support lifecycle from Sitecore, well, what we'll notice is we have 3 different categories. We have mainstream support, extended support, and what we call sustaining support phase. Now, at the end of this year, version 8, which is why this is a critical issue for us to address today, is going into what we call sustaining support phase. And why that's important is that in sustaining support phase, we'll notice obviously that we don't get security updates and fixes, and patches, etc., are no longer available to us. So it is quite important from a compliance perspective that if you're on version 8, that we quite quickly look to how we can upgrade you and get you to the latest version. Importantly, even version 9 is something we want to start looking at. So version 9, although version 9 will still be getting our security update and fixes, what we'll notice with version 9 is that if you want any additional assistance with errors or unexpected behavior or product features, extra hotfixes and patches, that potentially becomes a paid-for engagement. Now, actually, Sitecore is very generous with this. I've worked with many other vendors in the past, and more often than not, after your initial 3-year mainstream support, your extended support contains a whole lot less than what Sitecore is giving you over here. But it is important to understand that we are running at risk if we're on version 8, certainly, and version 9 is something we should really start to think about. Most customers want to stay in mainstream support, which means if you look at it, you should be considering an upgrade at least every 3 years, or as Dataweavers does it, we try to aim to keep our customers evergreen. So at least once a year, get them onto the latest and greatest platform in the technology stack. So now hopefully we have a bit of an understanding of what that support lifecycle looks like. Let's talk about some other reasons you may want to upgrade. And one of the reasons to upgrade is not just because there's a compliance reason or we want to make sure we've got the latest security patches on our platform. It's also because obviously Sitecore adds new values and new features with each version. And you can see that the value goes up because every new version of Sitecore has new features. And these features, if you don't upgrade, it means that you don't get the opportunity to use these features, and potentially you find yourself in a position where your competitors are moving ahead because they've got some of these capabilities. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these features. I've just pulled out a couple of selected highlights over here, just to give you a bit of a flavor of how the capability of the platform improves with each version. So, for example, Sitecore 10, great capability, GDPR compliance, means you have the ability to suddenly anonymize personal information. And today, that's a very hot topic. So something that you may want to look about being able to implement. So each one of these versions has additional capability. So really the point of the slide is, understand it's not just about being compliant, it's giving you access to the latest and greatest features and making you prepared for the future. So if we think about that, what does it really mean to be on an unsupported version? In summary, if we're on an unsupported version, it means that we have no patching or technical assistance is typically offered. The technical community has moved on. And this for me is quite an important one, I think is possibly overlooked. If you're running on an older version of a technology platform, if you're running on an older version of Sitecore, it's going to be very difficult for you to attract and retain the best talent in the market, because all the talent wants to be working on the latest and greatest version with the exciting technology. So if you're running on a legacy platform, it means that the community itself has moved on and you won't be able to attract that talent. So that's quite an important facet, I think, to think about. The longer you leave it, the more complex your upgrades are going to be. So obviously moving from version 8 to 10.3 is a much bigger jump than moving from anything from version 9 to 10.3. So we find that you want to actually keep yourself up to date as much as you can to simplify those upgrade processes. And more importantly, if you're not on the latest version and we haven't helped you make that step change, it means that you haven't taken any steps towards potentially adopting XM Cloud or composable architecture. And these things are quite important as the modern world of MarTech moves forward, the ability to use Sitecore's cloud products, as well as start to consider your MarTech stack as a composable architecture. Let's talk a little bit about long and complicated upgrades. And very often when we think about moving from one version to another version, we see that as being a really big, horrible, and scary project, and it's long and complicated. And there's reasons behind this. So yes, upgrades can be complex if they're done without the correct capability and skill, and they potentially expose you to risk. So why are upgrades long and complicated? So there's a couple of reasons for this. It's not just about the code. It's a multi-layered approach. So very often when we do an upgrade, we need to rethink about our infrastructure. So the infrastructure that's supporting the technology platform we're upgrading, do we need to move that up to a later and greater infrastructure? Do we need to scale it differently to enable our sites to be as performant as they were before, or if not, at least improve? We need to think about abstracting our code and config. So really the way to do this today is to keep your code and your configuration separate to allow a level of automation in what it is that you're doing. Data. Is the data, for example, you're collecting in Sitecore Analytics, is it actually valuable to you? And do you want to migrate that data or keep that data current in the new version? Because there's quite a complicated process to do that. And then obviously testing, having a really well-defined test plan and testing approach to actually validate that your upgrade's been successful. So upgrades can be long and complex. Now, Dataweavers, this is what we live, eat, and breathe. This is what we do every day. We build tools and capability to make sure we can simplify, reduce the risk, and obviously do those upgrades a lot quicker for our customers as we take them onto our platform. Again, the longer you wait, the more of a support risk you have. So what this means is, if you're currently running on version 8, you're about to be out of compliance essentially at the end of the year. The longer you wait to start that upgrade process, the longer you're actually out of support. And that's important. One of the things we often hear from customers when they look at the upgrade process is they think to themselves, well, the upgrade is going to be long and complicated. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. So because it's going to be difficult and hard, I may as well spend a whole bunch of time building some new capability, re-looking at my entire CX process, building new capability, because it's just going to be a big, complicated project. I might as well improve things while I'm doing it in the first place. And this is actually a little bit counterintuitive. The better way from our perspective is get your software to the best possible state, get your upgrade onto the latest version, and then on the latest version, start to make the improvements to your site and to your content and to your structure. So there's some example challenges that may lead to long and complicated upgrades. So these are some of the things from a code and from a functional perspective that typically mean upgrades are difficult. Now, Dataweavers has tools, processes, and techniques to simplify this entire space, but to understand these are some of the things that typically trip us up or trip customers up. Code cleanup. So obviously, if the code is not written in a really nice way, it's not applying the Helix principles, there's a bit of work to clean it up and make it ready to go. Sitecore modules deprecation. Obviously, the Sitecore modules, when we go from version to version, some of the Sitecore modules themselves and community-driven modules are no longer supported on new version. And often we need to find a different way to approach the particular solution, potentially building new capability. Web forms from 8 need to be rebuilt as we move on to a new version. Again, we've got some capability and some automation to help with that process. Conflicts with configuration, being able to split apart that configuration, etc. So there's a whole host of things over here that potentially lead to challenges in an upgrade and could mean that that upgrade is complex. And probably one of the key ones, why we're really here today, one of the key taglines of this presentation is this concept of security. So what we find is if you're running on an unsupported platform, typically that platform is considered insecure. It's actually one of the single biggest risk factors. If you're in a target industry, a compliant-based industry, typically what you'll find is you're going to be a target for attacks. So what this typically means is that we often see customers say to us, oh, but I'll be okay because I've got great WAF and firewall capability, which means I've got good OWASP and I've got good DDoS protection. But the truth of the matter is this is only one part of the equation. Perimeter security really is only one part. If there's underlying gaps in the platform itself that need to be security patched, or coding techniques that your dev team or your partner's dev team has made mistakes in, this still leaves you vulnerable. So part of that upgrade process is obviously get you in the latest version with the correct security patches, also making sure that your code is secure and you're no longer vulnerable. And by way of example, here you can see what Sitecore has been doing correctly up until now in the supported version of 8 is they've been releasing actual critical vulnerability fixes for their platform and making those available to be installed. But as you go out of support, that's no longer available to you. So it's important to understand that a WAF and firewall and OWASP and DDoS protection isn't everything. It's only one part of the story in terms of making sure your platform is secure. So if you think about what I've just said now, what worries you most about your Sitecore platform right now? Or what worries you most about your customers' Sitecore platforms right now? Is it unsupported versions? Is it the fact that they're worried about long and complex upgrade? Is it the fact that they're worried about being an insecure platform? Or is it that your team are maybe not focusing on the right things? So I'll give you guys an opportunity in the chat just to type in maybe what you think worries you the most.
Give everyone the chance, Piers, to put their answers in for a sec.
For sure.
Can see a couple starting to come through. Thanks, Hugh. We do have a number of Sitecore people on the call, and we'd be interested in your opinion as well. What are you seeing from your customer base as to what the challenge is out of those that are listed there? Maybe we're a bit early in the morning, Piers. Everyone's a bit slow off the mark on the keyboard.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, that's great. A great point. You XM Cloud for on-prem. Yep. Thank you, Alan. Yeah, look, so I think the basic gist of it is this, is that in reality, it should be all of them. It might be one of those specific items that is probably more top of mind, but really all of those particular challenges or worries, if you're running on an unsupported version, are things that we need to try address for you. So thanks for those who participated. For those who don't, I'm sure you're thinking in your head one of those, hopefully all of them. So let's talk about what you want. As a customer, where do you want to end up? Or as a Sitecore, where do you want your customers to end up? Where do we really want to be? What is the ideal state for us? So the ideal state for us will be that you're running a supported platform, which means you've got the opportunity to harness the new features. You're aligned to where the vendor is actually making investments. So we're aligned to where Sitecore is making investment, both on the on-prem version and in the cloud version. We're ready to go. We're ready to start adopting that composable architecture, or we are already adopting that composable architecture. You're sitting in a position where the best technical talent in the market resides, which means that gives you the opportunity to build the best possible technical or digital experiences rather. So 10.3 is the best first step to get you ready for Sitecore XM Cloud, Hugh, to your question. This is what David Flanagan, your Chief Product Officer, said in his recent tour of Australia. If you're running on an older version of Sitecore, get yourself up to 10.3 because then you've got all the baselines to start looking at adopting XM Cloud. So supported platform is really important, and it's something we want to be on. The next thing we want is we want the ability to have quick and seamless upgrades. So yes, there's a bit of a lump to get you into good state to start with, but what you want to do is once you're in that position, you want to keep your platform evergreen. You want all your future upgrades to be simple and just happen as BAU. So you're always going from 10.3 to 10.4 to whatever's next, or perhaps even into XM Cloud. Your upgrades should not take months. The upgrade should be quick and seamless. They shouldn't disrupt your flow. They shouldn't disrupt your developer flow. They shouldn't disrupt your marketing flow. The architecture you have is future-proof, moving towards composable. So we take what you got today, we get into good position, we get you ready for composable, or you start to adopt composable. And most importantly, your team isn't worrying about all this underlying infrastructure stuff and architecture stuff. What they're focused on doing is adding real business value, delivering digital experiences. You want to be on a secure and compliant platform, a platform that is always patched, that is always upgraded, that has a multi-layer security posture with full OWASP security, full DDoS, and code-based security, that has full redundancy, high availability, and DR built in with a 99.99% uptime. That's where you want to be. So you don't have to, again, worry about the underlying infrastructure pieces. So let's chat about one of our customers who is actually in this position now after engaging Dataweavers. So Chris Mesa is the digital marketing manager for Isuzu Ute. He reached out to Dataweavers because he was in the process of building a new site, a new technology platform on Sitecore. And he realized quite quickly that he needed a way to host this so that the underlying infrastructure was fully managed, so that all new version upgrades will be done automatically on behalf of him, and he could have all his team and all his partners focus purely on building digital experiences. So everything that was happening under the hood was taken care of for him. So he engaged Dataweavers in the middle of his project. In 14 days, we had him up and running on a full web ops platform. This is the Dataweavers platform where everything was automated. All his releases were automated. And since that time, we've done a number of upgrade processes for him to get him onto later versions, completely seamless with no downtime. So he's really started to get the benefit of really what that true want or the desired state is. So if you think about those things I just spoke about, what do you really want from your platform? Or what do you think your customers really want from a platform? Do they want to support a platform? Do they want to have seamless upgrades? Do they want to make sure they're secure and compliant? What is the want? What do we think that we really want out of all of this? I'll give you an opportunity to type into the chat.
See if we get a few more this time, please. I'll start it off. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, probably a little bit of a rhetorical question, because in reality, it's all of the above, right? Customers really want a situation where they don't have to worry about the underlying platform. It's secure, it's evergreen, it's ready to go, and they can just start adding value. So let's talk now about some of the keys. How do you get to that state? How do you get to that perfect state, that perfect world as part of your upgrade process? Well, the first thing is automation is 100% mandatory in everything you do. And everything Dataweavers does, we are built religiously from the ground up to include and create automation. This means automation of the entire infrastructure. This is the ability to deploy that infrastructure and to scale that infrastructure as and when required. Automation of the entire code pipelines. So when developers check stuff in, have that stuff go through an automatic pipeline, have all the relevant tests run, all the security tests run against it, and confirm if the build is successful or not, and then have that deployed into the various environments as and when required with appropriate governance, completely automated. Automation is key to enabling future upgrade capability because it means it's very quick to test that upgrade process because you have automation across the entire stack. So if you look at what automation looks like from a Dataweavers perspective and what we provide, everything with a little D in it that's blue is something that Dataweavers does. So what we do is we create the build pipelines. We deploy or create the pipeline work for the infrastructure and the application. We build the pipelines for the customer's application code written by the customer or partner, and in many cases, a mixture of these two. We run the customer's test and we apply a level of quality control on the code and security to make sure that's all good and it's not going to introduce any vulnerabilities. We then are responsible for running, obviously, the deployment of the infrastructure in the application, all of the compiled artifacts, and then we release it into the customer's environments, dev, UAT, and production, and others if required, in a multi-regional way. Across that, we have a governance layer, which means at the right stages in that deployment and that automation lifecycle, approval happens and releases go forth. And really all customers have to worry about is that application code. So as part of the upgrade process, what we do is we put this automation in place. So the next upgrade and the next set of work you're doing is all taken care of. Next key value proposition or key thing that you need to think about is delivering in the cloud. So why do we want to be able to deliver in the cloud? Well, the first thing is it provides us limitless scale. What this means is we can scale up the infrastructure as and when required to the relevant demand. It enables true infrastructure automation. So that automation I spoke of before, what the cloud provides us is the ability to programmatically infrastructure as code automate that entire infrastructure stack for our customers. It improves manageability. And more importantly, something that's often probably a little bit counterintuitive, but it's the truth, it allows us to improve and simplify compliance because the big cloud vendors have a whole range of capability around compliance already built in. You're not inventing that from scratch. It's already available to you to take advantage with. So delivering in the cloud becomes quite important. So who's cloud? So when we look at this from a Dataweavers perspective, we've got options. So typically 90% of the time, what we do for our customers is from the Azure Marketplace, we install the Dataweavers platform into the customer's environment, into the DevOps, and release into the customer's tenancy. So the data remains in the customer's tenancy if they want to, from a PII perspective, be able to manage that. And it's deployed automatically in your tenancy, taking advantage of potentially the customer's existing Azure agreements. In some cases, we host that for customers as well, when they don't necessarily have Azure yet, or they just want us to host and own that capability as well for them. Secure by design. So one of the other things you want to do as part of your upgrade process is make sure, key, that you've built in security from day one. Security obviously being critically important. So what do we do as Dataweavers as part of our upgrade process and we bring you onto the Dataweavers architecture? Well, the first thing we do is apply all the cycle hardening practices as part of the process. We apply static code analysis. This is looking for vulnerabilities in code as part of that build pipeline. We install and configure and set up the best possible capability around DDoS and WAF, both redundant and multi-layered technology platforms under the hood there. We have specific rule sets crafted for OS protection, as well as extended Sitecore specifics where people attack Sitecore, and we have specific rules to prevent that. We have 24/7 monitoring alerting, so we turn that on so the entire platform is monitored and alerts as part of the upgrade process. And then what happens, we implement a programmatic approach to patching and security review, which means every time there's a new security patch, rest assured that patch gets installed in that upgraded environment on that new Dataweavers architecture that gets deployed for you as a programmatic approach, not ad hoc, which is important. We employ the best practice security architecture for Azure and Sitecore, as well as information from our own Dataweavers experience, having set this up and worked through this architecture. And all of this has been proven in the real battle world. We've defended actual customers against real attacks. We also focus on making sure from an encryption standpoint, we provide encryption at rest and in transit as a default standard in everything else that we do. Here's an example of a real attack that happened against one of our customers last week and how our platform was able to simply defend that attack off with no downtime on the site. And this is a fairly significant DDoS and bot attack on that customer site. They didn't even know, none of their customers knew. It was just protected under the hood and things carried on moving smoothly through the process. The next key item you want to adopt as part of an upgrade, and what Dataweavers can certainly help with, is battle-proven architectures. So really what this means is not inventing an architecture from scratch and trying to figure out how to deploy it and how to structure it and how many SQL databases do I need and how many app services do I need or containers, actually having something that's been proven in the wild. So we have battle-proven architectures that we apply specific patterns to customers based on their load, based on the specific requirements. And these are all scaled in multi-region, specifically focused on XM and XP, headless or not. So whether it's a headless architecture or not, the architecture holds and we have capability there. And hybrid or not. And this is probably one of the most important ones, and specifically also for the Sitecore people to note. These architectures allow us to help customers leverage both Sitecore cloud services, whether it be Order Cloud or Personalize or one of these capabilities, as well as merging that with the existing technology stack that we have. So hybrid or not, we have the capability. Cost savings, 50% plus, and 50% is low in many instances. Many times it's more than that. So if you look at how customers are typically hosting cloud today and the cost that they have, fairly expensive. We're typically able to reduce that significantly. Our architectures are native PaaS capabilities. We're building self-healing, as explained. So if anything goes wrong, we have redundant capability that takes over, and with no downtime, the solution just carries on. We also, because every single thing we do is source controlled, which means you always have a last known good configuration available that we can click a button and deploy. If anything major should happen, we have that capability with the tech stack that we have. So battle-proven architecture, really important key. The next part is having your upgrades built in. So when you get yourself onto the new version, think about making sure the upgrades to version.next, version.next, and version.next are built into the process. Now, this is something that Dataweavers does as part of the way we enable our platform. We deploy it, and then as part of the ongoing 24/7 support, we will then build in those upgrades. So annually, we will go take you from what you're on now to whatever the latest version is, go through that process again. And obviously, we're able to do this fairly quickly because we put all that automation and all that capability in using the tool chain that we've put in place already. And we do those upgrades, quite importantly, with zero downtime for our customers. We have the ability to spin up the replica infrastructure, do the upgrade, deploy it, test it, and then when the customer is ready, we can do a quick cut over. And this results in no downtime. Traffic cut over happens and customers keep going. And this is quite rare in most circumstances, but something we've been able to build as part of the Dataweavers platform. And our customers certainly are getting value for that. So if we think about what I've said over there, which of these do you typically need the most? Do you need automation? Do you need cloud deployment capability? Do you need secure by design, i.e. the design, the security is built in? Do you want proven architecture? So we're not inventing it from scratch. It's pre-built, it's done, it's been proven in the wild, and it's good to go. Do you want evergreen updates so that it's always updated? Or again, is it all of the above? So what of those is the most important to you guys? Give you an opportunity to type it into the chat again. Yeah. So look, I think in reality, again, probably a bit rhetorical. The answer is all of them, but there might be specific items, nuances that in your specific scenario you're worried about. It could be the security, it could be the uptime. That is important. Awesome. So those are the key facets of what we should be looking at. So again, the summary of that is built-in upgrades, automated, delivered in the cloud, secure by design, based on a battle-proven architecture. If we get all those things in place as part of the upgrade, taking you, in our case, onto a Dataweavers platform and Dataweavers technology around Sitecore, then all those wants, that experience that Chris Mesa has from Isuzu, your customers or you as a customer will have on top of Sitecore. The main thing we want to get to is a situation where your digital teams or your customers' digital teams are not working on the wrong things. Because today, very often when we engage customers, this horrible thing on the left is what we find. They spend very little time actually building business value and delivering great experiences, and a lot of time messing with stuff behind the scenes just to get it live, just to get it working, just to make it compliant. Throwing an upgrade into this mix at some random point, it gets even worse. So by taking the Dataweavers approach, where we upgrade the customer to the latest version of Sitecore in that architecture with all those key capabilities, it means that our customers are able to focus all their time on delivering experiences and maybe spend 5% of the time asking the Dataweavers team to increase or to change or to add something or to add a new capability in a pipeline, and which we provide them again with a 24/7 support. The main thing is really customers start to get the true value out of Sitecore because all the energies are spent building experiences, not keeping a platform up and running. So what can we do now? So next steps, hopefully I've given you some input over here, given you some education, explained why it is that it's really important to think about getting off Sitecore 8 and even start thinking about Sitecore 9 if you're on Sitecore 9. Get that up to the latest version, protect ourselves against security, but also hopefully give you a bit of a view of what the world could look like if you do that in the right way and you introduce those key capabilities into the platform as part of that upgrade process. Again, Dataweavers rightly positioned to provide that capability for you. So the things you can do next is download our buyer's guide. The link has been pasted in the chat. It'll also be in a follow-up email to the webinar. So you're welcome to download. And that guide gives you an overview of much of what we've spoken about today and really a nice, good summary on that. And book a free discovery session. At no commitment to you, connect with us at Dataweavers. Email address is in the chat, and book a discovery session with us. Myself or one of my team will spend time with you, understand where you are today in reality, and figure out how it is that we get you to the latest and greatest version and what that could look like in future for you.
Piers, and that would include the Sitecore team as well, if they had a customer that they needed some help with?
Yeah, obviously 100%, right? So if Sitecore members on the call have seen this, it is of interest, and you know you've got customers that are struggling, please introduce us to them. Let's do that discovery session and see if we can help them across the line. I think one of the key things over here, just to reinforce, is that Dataweavers is built around doing upgrades and getting you into the right architecture. That's all we do. That's what we focus on. We focus on the platform. We focus on getting the latest, which is why we're typically able to do upgrades much quicker than most partners who would focus on that as an ad hoc thing that they do. We live, eat, and breathe that. We build tools and capability. So we can typically do it at a fraction of a cost and much less of a time frame. As the webinar said, in some cases 30 days, in some cases 90 days, but definitely much quicker than most customers would have had in the past.
And Piers, I think the key thing is our model is very much, as you said, a complementary to partner model. So if a customer's already got an existing digital agency partner, then we complement the services that they provide. So back to your picture, the partner can be working on the digital experience and not the underlying platform and infrastructure.
Yeah, 100%. So if we go back to my automation picture over here, which is this one here. In reality, like I said, customer and partner. So we wrap all this capability around that. And many of our customers have multiple partners in the environment delivering different digital experiences on top of the Sitecore platform. And what we do is we provide all the infrastructure and capability to bring that all together and deploy it. So we work very well with existing partners. And very often when we get into the environment, those existing partners are like, thank goodness somebody else is taking care of that and is worried about making sure the platform's up and running. I can focus on building experiences now. Michael asked a question earlier. Matt, maybe you want to help with this one as well. The question is how do sellers position Dataweavers to net new logos?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think for any of the customers that have experienced Dataweavers so far, the very first thing that we would do is sit with them and understand what their requirements are. That's really important for us to know what the current landscape is from a digital experience perspective, and where do they want to go? What is important to them? What are the business outcomes that they're trying to achieve? And then from there, gathering that information, we would then help either the customer directly or with their partner make recommendations around the most appropriate Sitecore technology that they could use.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so whether that's XP or XM, again based on requirements, or into the new composable world, so XM Cloud, we have the skills to be able to help through that journey.
Yeah. And very often conversations that we have with customer about, how do I start in the composable? How do I get myself onto in the right place? So we're able to work through those architectures and really just give them the best advice to adopt Sitecore in the best possible way for them.
And Piers, if it's okay, could you jump back to the slide where you show, the elements that one there. Sorry, back one.
This one.
No, one more. No, the other way. So that love and hate doing slide.
My last one. Yeah.
So what we do find with, if it's customers directly or partners, the impact of taking all of these elements on the left that Piers explained, that the pieces that we find a lot of customers and partners don't actually want to do, there is a material and commercial impact of that to partners and customers, because it's effort, and we take that effort away and allow, as we show there, that effort to transpose into building great digital experiences.
Yeah. And I think that the truth is, it doesn't matter what architecture the customer is going for, whether they're going for a hybrid or combination between XM on-prem hosted in Azure and some of the composable capability from the cloud, or even totally cloud. These things are still problems for customers that they don't want to have to deal with. And that's where Dataweavers really adds value, because we can help out with this.
So we'll really open it up. If you have a question, you're more than welcome to jump off mute and ask Piers directly, or post it in the chat, and we'll see if we can help. I don't think we're going to have a lot of luck, Piers, that people haven't been overly keen to type this morning. Maybe because everyone's having their brekkie wrap and their hands are full.
Yeah, so look, I'll give you some of the typical questions we get, and maybe I'll play a couple of those back. So Dataweavers, how is it possible that you can do these upgrades so quickly? It doesn't make sense. The last time I did an upgrade, it took me 6 months and it was incredibly painful. We had lots of downtime. Well, the answer to that question is, again, this is what Dataweavers does. We've built tools and capability and process to make this a repeatable programmatic thing. So we've got automation that allows us to simplify the upgrade process. We've got a very defined process that we run through with customers. We've got a 116 questionnaire that we run through with the customers to figure out exactly where the problem pieces are going to be, which means that when we enter that upgrade, we know exactly what we're in for and what we need to attack first and get them onto that version. Once you get them over that initial hump and they're on the new way of working, they're on the Dataweavers approach with our support, all future upgrades are much simpler.
All right, Piers, I think you've wowed everyone with your technical capability, stunned silence. But we thank everyone for joining this morning. As Piers said, there was a couple of links. We'll share the recording and the presentation, and obviously the link to the buyer's guide was in the chat, as well as listed in the last couple of slides. So thanks again for everyone joining, and we shall see you soon.
Thanks, Piers. That was great.